They say the moment before everything falls apart is the most beautiful. Standing in my wedding dress on that cliff in Santorini, the Mediterranean sun painting everything gold, I believed I had finally won. After 31 years of being invisible, I was about to marry David, the one person who truly saw me. How foolish I was. The music began, that ethereal melody I had chosen so carefully, floating across the rows of white chairs filled with our guests. David stood at the altar, his eyes warm with love, waiting for me. I took my first step down the aisle, my heart so full I thought it might burst. Then I heard the gasp from the crowd, and everything shattered. Behind me, at the entrance I had just left, stood Serafina. My younger sister wore an identical wedding dress to mine, except hers sparkled with additional crystals, catching the light in a way that made mine look dull by comparison. She had that smile on her face, the one I had seen 1,000 times before, the smile of someone who knows they are about to take everything from you. My father Richard appeared beside her, and without even glancing in my direction, he took her arm. They began walking down the aisle together, straight past where I stood frozen, straight toward my groom, my altar, my moment. The guests whispered and stared, some with pity, others with shock, but none moved to stop this grotesque display. Even David seemed paralyzed, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Serafina's shoulder brushed mine as she passed, and she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You should have known better than to think you could have something I didn't." My father didn't even acknowledge my existence. To him, I had already ceased to be. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only seconds. Then, with a clarity that surprised even me, I reached up and removed my veil. I set down my bouquet on the nearest chai. Time equals zero point 0.3 seconds, turned my back on the entire spectacle, and walked away. Behind me, I heard David calling my name, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. If I stopped, I would crumble, and I refused to give them that satisfaction. The path back to the hotel was a blur. My mind kept replaying moments from my childhood, searching for the exact point when I became invisible to my father. Was it when Serafina was born? When she took her first ballet class? When she smiled that perfect smile that made everyone forget I existed? I remembered my high school graduation, standing on that stage as valedictorian, scanning the crowd for my father's face. He wasn't there. He had taken Serafina to an amateur ballet recital instead, one where she fumbled through the routine but still received a standing ovation from him. I delivered my speech to an audience of strangers, and one empty chair I had foolishly reserved for him. College was no different. While Serafina received a luxury car for her mediocre high school graduation, I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay my tuition. I served coffee to exhausted students, cleaned offices at night, and tutored on weekends, all while maintaining a perfect GPA. When I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business and event management, my father sent a card. Just a card. Not even handwritten, but one of those generic congratulations cards you buy in bulk. Meanwhile, Serafina's study abroad program in Paris, which she abandoned after 3 months because the professors didn't understand her vision, cost more than my entire 4-year education. But the company, our family's event planning business, that was where the real injustice lived. My grandmother Evelyn had built Williams Event Planning from nothing, turning it into the premier luxury event company in the city. She had taught me everything, spending countless afternoons showing me how to negotiate with vendors, manage budgets, and create magic from chaos. When she died 5 years ago, I thought finally, my father would see my value. Instead, he appointed Serafina as creative director. She had no experience, no training, and no interest in anything beyond the title and the corner office. Her first project, a charity gala for the Children's Hospital, ended in disaster when she forgot to confirm the catering and showed up 3 hours late, high on champagne and designer drugs. I spent the entire night on the phone, calling in every favor I had to salvage the event. The next morning, My father praised Serafina for her bold vision and criticized me for being too controlling. That became the pattern. Serafina would destroy, I would repair, and she would receive the credit. The Hendricks wedding, where she changed the flower order 3 times and nearly caused the bride to have a breakdown? I fixed it. The Morrison corporate retreat, where she insulted their CEO's wife? I smoothed it over. The endless meetings where she would mock my spreadsheets and timelines while offering nothing but vague ideas about energy and vibes? I endured them all. Vivian Blackwood was the only one who saw through the charade. The CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, our biggest client, had watched this dysfunction for years with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. After one particularly humiliating meeting where Serafina had called my comprehensive project plan something a robot would create, Vivian had pulled me aside. "Your sister is a parasite," she had said bluntly, "and your father is too blind to see it. But I see you, Rose. I see everything you do." She became my secret mentor after that, meeting me for coffee every week, teaching me about more than just event planning. She taught me about power, about leverage, about documenting everything. "Never trust anyone who benefits from your silence," she would say, sliding another folder of evidence across the table. Email chains, financial records, security footage. Vivian had been building a case for years, waiting for the right moment. That moment came as I sat in my hotel room in Santorini, still in my wedding dress, watching the sun set over the caldera. My phone buzzed with a call from Jonathan Hale, our family's lawyer. His voice was careful, measured, the way lawyers speak when they're about to change your life. "Rose, I need to tell you something about your grandmother's will. There's a clause we've never discussed, one that was sealed until certain conditions were met." The clause was brilliant in its simplicity. If evidence of gross mismanagement and ethical violations in company leadership could be proven, and if a pattern of discrimination against rightful heirs could be demonstrated, the entire company, all assets, and a trust fund of $2.3 million would transfer to the affected party. The public humiliation at my wedding, Jonathan explained, had triggered the clause. We had 90 days to present our case to the board. Vivian arrived the next morning on her private jet. She found me on the balcony, finally out of that wedding dress, staring at the ocean. Without a word, she set a briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside were years of documentation, everything we would need. "Your father announced Serafina as the new COO last night," she said. "At your wedding reception, the one you paid for. They celebrated while you sat here alone." The rage that filled me then was unlike anything I had ever felt. Not the hot, explosive anger of the wounded, but something colder, more calculated. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fix things. I was going to destroy them. We spent the next 2 months building our case with surgical precision. Sophia Chen, the former managing director who Serafina had forced out with false accusations of embezzlement, provided internal documents showing the real embezzlement, Serafina's. Maria Jenkins, whose $1 million wedding had nearly been ruined by Serafina's incompetence and theft, offered her testimony. Every employee who had been bullied, every client who had been deceived, every vendor who had been stiffed, they all came forward once they knew someone was finally listening. The most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. David, my would-be groom, had been recording on his phone when Serafina and my father had their conversation the night before our wedding. In it, Serafina explicitly stated her plan to steal Rose's moment, and my father had laughed, actually laughed, saying I needed to learn my place anyway. The plan for the reveal required patience, something I had in abundance after years of waiting. The company's 50th anniversary gala was approaching, the same gala where my father planned to officially announce Serafina as his successor. It would be held at the Grand Ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel, with every important client, vendor, and society figure in attendance. The same people who had witnessed my humiliation would witness my vindication. The night arrived faster than expected. I wore black, A simple but elegant dress that made me look like what I was, a woman in mourning for the family she never had. I arrived early, watching from the back as my father and Serafina held court, accepting congratulations for successes they had stolen from me. My father took the stage at exactly 9 o'clock, raising his champagne glass. His speech was nauseating in its revision of history, praising Serafina's innovation and vision, claiming she had single-handedly saved the company from stagnation. Then he saw me. "Rose," he called out, that false warmth in his voice that I now recognized as mockery. "Don't stand in the back like the help. Come serve some champagne to our guests. Make yourself useful for once." The room laughed. They actually laughed. I walked forward, but not to serve champagne. I walked straight to the audiovisual booth, where Marcus Thorne, a board member who had reviewed our evidence, was waiting. He pressed play. The screens around the ballroom came to life. First, the security footage of Serafina destroying the Henderson wedding cake in a cocaine-fueled rage, then trying to blame it on the catering staff. Then the audio of her admitting to stealing the Jennings deposit, laughing about how she had spent it on a shopping spree in Milan. Email after email scrolled past, showing her taking credit for my work, her insulting messages about clients, her threats to employees who questioned her. The crowd stood frozen, champagne glasses halfway to lips, as document after document exposed the truth. Financial records showing the company had lost 30% of its value since Serafina joined leadership. Testimonials from former employees about the toxic environment she had created. And finally, the video from my wedding, showing my father walking her down my aisle, past me, his actual daughter, the one who had saved his company over and over again. But the finale was Vivian's entrance. She strode through the ballroom doors with Jonathan Hale and a team of auditor, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Effective immediately," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Blackwood Enterprises is terminating all contracts with Williams Event Planning under its current leadership." She paused, letting the weight of losing their biggest client sink in. "However, we would be happy to reconsider if the board takes appropriate action regarding leadership changes." Jonathan stepped forward next. "Additionally, pursuant to the sealed provisions in Evelyn Williams' will, I am here to notify the board that evidence of gross mismanagement and ethical violations has been presented. An emergency board meeting is required within 24 hours to address these concerns." Serafina's scream cut through the air like a siren. She lunged at me, her perfect nails aimed at my face, but security intercepted her. She writhed in their grip, screaming obscenities, her carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. My father stood frozen on the stage, his face cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally, fear. The board meeting the next morning was swift. With the evidence presented and the threat of losing every major client, they had no choice. The vote was unanimous. My father was forced into immediate retirement with no severance. Serafina was terminated for cause, making her ineligible for any benefits or recommendations. And I was appointed as the new CEO, effective immediately. My first act was to rehire everyone Serafina had wrongfully terminated, starting with Sophia Chen, who I made my chief operating officer. My second was to establish the Evelyn Sterling Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs, funded initially by the $2.3 million from my grandmother's trust. The aftermath was everything I had imagined during those dark nights of planning. Richard's reputation crumbled within weeks. Without the company's income, and with multiple lawsuits from wronged clients seeking damages, he was forced to declare bankruptcy. The family mansion, the one where I had spent my childhood being ignored. Time equals 0.3 seconds went to foreclosure. I bought it at auction for a fraction of its value and converted it into the Evelyn Sterling Center for Business Innovation, a training facility for young women entering the corporate world. Serafina's fall was even more spectacular. The videos from the gala went viral in our industry, making her unemployable in event planning. She attempted to start her own company, leveraging what she thought were loyal contacts. But without my constant, invisible support, Her true incompetence was exposed. Within 6 months, her venture had collapsed, leaving her with massive debts and no prospects. The last I heard, she was working as a junior assistant at a small marketing firm in another state, using a different last name. As for my father, he reached out once, 6 months after the gala. His voice on the phone was broken, desperate, nothing like the commanding tone I had known all my life. "Rose, please, I'm your father. You can't leave me with nothing." I let the silence stretch between us before responding. "You left me with nothing for 31 years. Every graduation you missed, every achievement you ignored, every success you gave to Serafina. You had nothing when grandmother built this company, and now you have nothing again. The only difference is, this time, you earned it." I hung up and blocked his number. Later, I sent him a package with business cards for financial advisors and therapists, along with a note: "Rebuild your life with your own capabilities." As I did, you might discover what it feels like to actually earn something. The company thrived under my leadership. Within a year, we had not only recovered our losses, but expanded into new markets. I implemented profit sharing for all employees, established mentorship programs, and created a work environment where talent was recognized regardless of whose daughter you were. Vivian Blackwood not only renewed her contracts but increased them, bringing in other CEOs from her network who respected authentic leadership. David and I married the following spring in a small ceremony in my grandmother's garden, the one behind the center that bore her name. Only 20 guests attended, each one someone who had stood by me during the darkness. No family members were invited from my side because I had learned that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up when you need them most. Vivian walked me down the aisle, and when she placed my hand in David's, she whispered, "Evelyn would be so proud." Sophia stood as my maid of honor, and the rest of my wedding party was made up of the employees who had suffered under Serafina's reign and fought alongside me for justice. It was perfect in its simplicity, genuine in every moment, everything my first wedding was supposed to be. Sometimes I think about forgiveness, about whether I should have been the bigger person and offered some form of reconciliation. Then I remember standing on that aisle in Santorini, invisible to my own father, discarded for the sister who had taken everything from me my entire life. I remember every night I worked 3 jobs while Serafina spent thousands on clothes. I remember every project I saved while she partied, every client I retained while she insulted them, every employee I protected while she terrorized them. Forgiveness, I have learned, is not a requirement for healing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to stop pouring your energy into people who see you as nothing more than a resource to exploit. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else, it's about finally choosing to save yourself. I keep a photo on my desk now, not of my father or Serafina, but of my grandmother Evelyn. She's standing in front of the company's first office, a tiny storefront with a hand-painted sign, her eyes fierce with determination. Next to it sits the latest industry award, the same one she won 40 years ago when everyone said a woman couldn't build an empire in this business. She did it anyway, and she made sure that when the time came, I could too. The last time I saw Serafina was at an industry conference in Chicago. She was working the registration desk, checking in attendees. When she saw me approaching, her face went pale. I could have walked to another line, avoided the confrontation, but I didn't. I walked straight to her desk and placed my attendee badge on the counter. "CEO track, Platinum Access," I said calmly, meeting her eyes. "The keynote speaker ticket should be attached as well." Her hands shook as she processed my registration. When she handed me my materials, she couldn't meet my eyes. "Enjoy the conference," she mumbled. "I always do," I replied, and walked away without looking back. That night, I delivered my keynote to an audience of 500 industry leaders. My topic was building success through authentic leadership and accountability. I never mentioned my father or Serafina by name, but everyone knew the story. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. People often ask me if I regret what happened, if I wish things could have been different. The truth is, I regret that it took me 31 years to realize that some people will never see your worth, no matter how much you sacrifice for them. I regret the years I spent believing that if I just worked harder, achieved more, sacrificed more, my father would finally love me the way he loved Serafina. But I don't regret the revenge. I don't regret taking back what was mine, protecting the people who deserved protection, and showing everyone who had witnessed my humiliation that I was never the weak one. They were. The company is mine now, truly mine in a way it never was, even when I was doing all the work. Every success is credited correctly, every failure is addressed honestly, and every person is valued for their actual contributions. The toxic culture that my father enabled and Serafina amplified is gone, replaced by something my grandmother would recognize. A place where hard work and talent matter more than manipulation and favoritism. 3 years have passed since that wedding. In Santorini. David and I have a daughter now, named Evelyn after my grandmother. Sometimes, when I hold her, I promise her that she will never have to fight for my love, never have to prove her worth, never have to wonder if she matters. She will know every day that she is seen, valued, and loved for exactly who she is. The fortune I inherited and the company I now run are not just symbols of my revenge. They are tools for ensuring that what happened to me doesn't happen to others. The Evelyn Sterling Center has graduated over 200 women, many of whom came from situations similar to mine: overlooked daughters, invisible sisters, forgotten dreamers who just needed someone to see their worth. Recently, one of our graduates sent me a letter. She had started her own company after years of being overlooked in her family's business, passed over for her younger brother, who had half her talent but all of her father's attention. She wrote that my story had given her the courage to stop waiting for recognition that would never come, and to build something of her own instead. Her company just landed its first $1 million contract. This is the true revenge. Not just the destruction of those who wronged us, but the construction of something better in place of what they destroyed. Every woman who walks through the doors of the center, every employee who thrives in our transformed company culture, every client who chooses us because they know we value integrity over connections. They are all part of the revenge. My father sent another letter last month, through a lawyer this time. He's sick, apparently, and wanted to reconcile before it's too late. The lawyer made it clear that there was no money involved in this request, just a dying man's wish to see his daughter. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds before sending my response. He had 31 years to see me. I was invisible to him then. I choose to be invisible to him now. Some might say that makes me cold, unforgiving, cruel even, but they didn't stand where I stood in Santorini, watching their father choose their sister's cruelty over their love. They didn't work 3 jobs to put themselves through school while their sister's failures were funded without question. They didn't save a company over and over only to be told they were too controlling, too detailed, too much of everything except what mattered. Vivian, who has become more of a mother to me than any blood relative ever was, understood perfectly when I told her about the letter. Forgiveness without accountability is just enabling, she said. You've given him exactly what he gave you. Nothing more, nothing less. The truth is, I have forgiven, just not in the way people expect. I've forgiven myself for believing for so long that I needed their approval. I've forgiven myself for all the years I spent trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I've forgiven myself for not seeing sooner that some people are incapable of love that isn't transactional. But forgetting? That's different. I'll never forget the lessons those years taught me. They made me who I am, the CEO who notices every employee's contribution, the mentor who ensures no one's work is stolen, the mother who will never let her daughter doubt her worth. The pain shaped me, but it doesn't define me anymore. Standing in my office now, looking out at the city skyline, I can see the Westbrook Hotel in the distance, the place where everything changed. Sometimes I book events there, walking through that same ballroom where my father's world crumbled. It doesn't hurt anymore. If anything, It reminds me that every ending is also a beginning, and sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, on your own terms, with the people who truly see you. My story began with a wedding that never happened, and a family that never was. But it didn't end there. It evolved into something more powerful, a testament to the strength that comes from finally choosing yourself after years of being chosen last. The company thrives, my real family flourishes, and every day, I wake up knowing that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, not because someone gave it to me, but because I took it back. That's the ultimate revenge, not just surviving those who tried to break you, but thriving in spite of them, building something so magnificent from the ruins they created that everyone can see what you were capable of all along. They thought they were burying me, but they didn't realize they were planting seeds. Now I'm the forest, and they're just footnotes in my story. The woman who stood frozen on that aisle in Santorini, watching her sister steal her wedding, feels like a stranger to me now. I want to go back and tell her that this isn't the ending, it's the beginning. That the pain she's feeling is just labor pains for the person she's about to become. That one day, she'll stand in a boardroom full of people who respect her, go home to a man who truly loves her, and hold a daughter who will never doubt her place in the world. But I can't go back. And even if I could, I wouldn't change anything. Every betrayal, every sleepless night, every moment of invisibility led me here, to this office with my grandmother's photo, to this life I built from scratch, to this version of myself who doesn't need anyone's permission to exist. The revenge wasn't just about taking back what was mine. It was about finally understanding that I was always enough. They were just too blind to see it. And that, perhaps, is the sweetest revenge of all.